Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we will dive deep into the absolutely explosive week of April 20 to April 24, breaking down Will's jaw-dropping reality check for RJ Ivy's chilling lack of remorse with Electra and that incredibly tense mystery call from Melissa Dillon. I am still completely buzzing with adrenaline from the sheer intensity of what is happening on our screens right now. I genuinely think we are witnessing some of the most compelling, psychologically rich television this show has produced in years. I feel so incredibly validated by the current direction of the writing, especially when it comes to the younger generation stepping up and carrying the massive heavy legacies of their families. There is a specific scene in the Forrester Creations showroom between RJ and Will that I have rewatched at least 5 times because it completely shattered me in the best possible way. The way I see it, the writers are no longer just playing with surface level love triangles. They are digging their hands deep into the generational trauma, the bloodlines, and the deep-seated insecurities that have defined the Forresters and the Spencers for decades. Let's start right there with RJ and Will, because I feel like I need to scream about this dynamic from the rooftops. I know a lot of people have been saying that this rivalry over Electra feels a bit repetitive, but I actually think the slow burn of their hatred is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it was never really about Electra at all, and Electra is just the catalyst. When RJ corners Will in the office and completely loses his stuffing, screaming at him and calling him a sleazy, greedy Spencer, I felt this profound wave of pity and secondhand embarrassment for RJ. I think the writer's choice to have RJ completely lose his composure while Will stands there relatively calm and collected was brilliant. It highlighted exactly what I have been suspecting for months. RJ's hatred of Will is entirely rooted in his own crippling inadequacies. In my opinion, RJ is suffering from a massive inferiority complex. Despite being the so-called spoiled Forrester brat, I firmly believe that RJ looks at Will and sees everything he desperately wishes he could be. Will is a true Spencer. He has the confidence, the financial backing, and the unshakable identity of being Bill Spencer's son. RJ, on the other hand, is constantly trying to prove he belongs in the Forrester executive suite. The way I interpret RJ's aggressive posturing is that he views Will as the true spoiled brat, the false prince who gets everything handed to him, while RJ feels like a pauper constantly having to sing for his supper to impress Ridge. I feel like this is the best they've written RJ's psychological profile because it makes his toxic behavior completely understandable even if it is entirely unjustified. But the moment that genuinely made me gasp out loud, the moment that I think solidifies this week as a masterclass in soap opera history, is Will's retaliation. When Will finally snaps back the way the lighting shifted in the room, casting this harsh, unforgiving shadow over RJ's face, was cinematic perfection. Will looks RJ dead in the eye and says, "You're not even a Forrester." I had literal chills running down my arms. I feel so incredibly relieved by that scene because to me, it finally proved that the writers have not forgotten their own lore. While pointing out that RJ isn't really a Forrester, but rather a Marone is the nuclear bomb I have been waiting for someone to drop. For those who might not be seeing the genius in this plot, we have to remember the history. Ridge Forrester is not Eric Forrester's biological son. He is the son of Massimo Marone. That makes RJ a Marone by blood. For years, RJ has paraded around Forrester Creations wielding his last name like a weapon, acting as if he's the ultimate heir to Eric's legacy. I believe that Will throwing the Marone bloodline in RJ's face is the ultimate psychological kill shot. I love the way RJ's face completely fell when Will said it. I think the absolute genius of Will's dialogue here is that he doesn't just insult RJ, he strips away the very foundation of RJ's identity. The way I see it, Will is telling RJ, "You are fighting a war for a kingdom that isn't even biologically yours." It is a masterful stroke of writing, and I feel like it perfectly encapsulates why Will Spencer is currently my favorite character on the canvas. Moving over to the absolute emotional wreckage that is Electra and Ivy, I am just in awe of the performances we are getting. When Daphne Rose finally reached her breaking point and confessed the truth to Electra about the stolen letter and the discarded WE necklace, my heart was in my throat. I think the decision to have Daphne be the one to break the news rather than Will or Melissa Dillon was a phenomenal choice. Daphne has been carrying this heavy moral burden, and seeing her desperately try to explain the truth to a confused, horrified Electra made me feel so deeply for both women. Electra's initial refusal to believe it, her insistence that her aunt Ivy wouldn't manipulate her like that was so painfully realistic. I feel like we've all been in that position where we refuse to accept that someone we love and trust could be capable of such profound cruelty. But it is the subsequent confrontation between Electra and Ivy that I want to write an entire thesis on. I know the fandom is currently divided on Ivy. A lot of people are complaining that the storyline is ruining Ivy's character. turning her into a cartoon villain. But I actually think this is the most fascinating, complex, and dark evolution of a character I have seen in years. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we just write Ivy off as evil. The way I interpret her actions, Ivy is suffering from a deeply toxic, obsessive loyalty to the Forrester name. When Electra corners her demanding answers, crying out in pain over the betrayal, Ivy doesn't flinch. She doesn't cry. She doesn't apologize. I was on the edge of my seat when Ivy looked at her devastated niece and delivered that chilling line. Yes, I did. And I'd do it all over again. I literally paused my screen. I could not believe the absolute sociopathic detachment in Ashley Brewer's delivery. I love the way the camera zoomed in slightly on Ivy's face, capturing this terrifyingly calm, self-righteous expression. I feel like this scene is the absolute pinnacle of the storyline. Ivy genuinely believes she's the hero of this narrative. In her twisted mind, Will is just another Spencer man, destined to drag Electra into emotional turmoil. Ivy believes that by pushing Electra toward RJ, she is keeping things in the family and securing Electra's future as a true Forrester. I think this obsession with the Forrester name is a brilliant callback to the legacy of Stephanie Forrester. Stephanie used to manipulate, lie, and destroy relationships, all in the name of protecting the family. I feel like Ivy has internalized that exact same toxic matriarchal energy. She views Electra as a pawn on a chessboard, and she feels completely justified in moving her around, even if it causes Electra immense pain. The way I see it, Ivy's lack of guilt isn't just bad behavior, it is a full-blown psychological break. I am absolutely living for the rumors that Ivy might be checking into a mental health facility soon, tying into Ashley Brewer's real-life maternity leave. I think that would be the perfect tragic culmination of this storyline. I feel so deeply for Electra, who is now left standing in the rubble of her life, realizing that the aunt she trusted implicitly is the architect of her heartbreak. The betrayal is so profound, and I believe it will permanently alter Electra's trajectory on this show. And then just when I thought my nerves couldn't take anymore, we get that incredibly unsettling scene with Melissa Dillon. I want to talk about the atmosphere of this scene because I think the production team knocked it out of the park. Dillon is in the design office at Forrester Creations. The lighting is slightly dim, giving the room this cavernous, lonely feeling. She answers her phone and we hear that terrifying distorted voice scrambler. It's me. We have some unfinished business. I felt a genuine shiver go down my spine. I know some viewers are rolling their eyes, saying that this is just a copy and paste of Electra's mysterious entrance onto the canvas. I've seen the comments complaining that the show is repeating tropes, but I actually think this thematic parallel is entirely intentional and incredibly effective. I feel like the writers are deliberately mirroring Electra and Dillon's journeys to highlight how different they are. Electra ran from her past and fell into the protective, albeit suffocating arms of the Forrester family. Dillon, on the other hand, is completely isolated. She just made the heartbreaking decision to move out of Will's beach house because she felt guilty about coming between him and Electra. She is alone, vulnerable, and trying to build a new life with her first paycheck from Forrester Creations. The way I interpret this mystery caller, it is someone who knows exactly how to exploit Dillon's current vulnerability. I am firmly on board with the theory that this is Remy Price. We know Remy has a mysterious connection to someone on Canvas, and the idea of Remy using a voice scrambler to terrorize a long-lost sister or family member feels so perfectly soapy and dramatic. I think it adds such a rich, dark layer to Dillon's character. Up until now, Dillon has been portrayed as this sweet, self-sacrificing friend who just wanted to do the right thing by moving out, but this phone call suggests a history that is messy, dangerous, and unresolved. I love the way Dillon's eyes widened and her breath hitched when she heard the voice. You could see the sheer panic wash over her face. I feel like this is going to open up a massive new chapter for her, and I am so here for it. I also want to touch on how these three distinct storylines, RJ and Will's bloodline war, Electra, and Ivy's tragic betrayal, and Dillon's dangerous past are all weaving together to create this incredibly dense, suffocating atmosphere at Forrester Creations. I feel like the office itself has become a pressure cooker. You have Ridge trying and failing miserably to act like a commanding patriarch, lecturing RJ about treating the office like a fashion house instead of a boxing ring. But I think Ridge's lectures fall completely flat because he is entirely unself-aware. I found myself almost laughing at Ridge's hypocrisy. How can he demand professionalism when his own family legacy is built on secrets, affairs, and hostile takeovers? I feel like the writers are intentionally highlighting Ridge's impotence as a leader right now. He cannot control his son, he cannot control the tension in his building, and he is completely oblivious to the fact that Ivy has been running a psychological manipulation ring right under his nose. When Electra finally pushes Steffi and Ridge to boot Ivy out of the company, I felt this massive surge of triumph. I think Electra finding her voice and demanding accountability is the character growth I have been begging for. She is no longer the passive victim crying over a lost necklace. She is furious, she is empowered, and she wants justice. I love the fire in her eyes when she demanded that Ivy face consequences. I feel like this is the moment Electra truly becomes a force to be reckoned with. She is looking at the Forrester legacy, the legacy that Ivy claims to protect, and she is rejecting the toxicity of it. I genuinely believe that Electra's demand to fire Ivy is going to send shockwaves through the entire family, forcing Ridge and Steffi to finally choose between family loyalty and basic human decency. And let's not forget Will's reaction to all of this. When Will finally gets the news about the stolen letter and realizes that Ivy orchestrated the entire breakup, the wrath he unleashes is going to be biblical. I am so ready for Will to corner Ivy. I think the contrast between Will's fiery, passionate anger and Ivy's cold sociopathic detachment is going to make for phenomenal television. I feel like Will has been forced to play defense for so long, defending his name against RJ, defending his actions to Electra, defending his friendship with Dylan. Now he finally has the truth on his side. He is completely vindicated. I believe that watching Will tear into Ivy, knowing that he was right all along about her interference, is going to be one of the most satisfying moments of the year. In my opinion, the current state of the show is an absolute triumph of character-driven storytelling. Every single action, every single harsh word is deeply rooted in years of established lore and psychological development. When Will calls RJ a Marone, it isn't just a cheap insult. It is the culmination of decades of Spencer and Forrester Marone history. When Ivy admits she would ruin Electra's life all over again, it isn't just villainy for the sake of villainy. It is the terrifying endpoint of a woman obsessed with a legacy that was never truly hers to control. And when Dylan hears that scrambled voice on the phone, it isn't just a random mystery. It is the ghosts of the past coming to collect their debts. I am fiercely loyal to this era of the show because I feel like the writers are treating the audience with respect. They are trusting us to remember the history. They are trusting us to understand the complex, often ugly emotions of these characters. I don't want simple heroes and villains. I want RJ's pathetic, heartbreaking insecurity. I want Will's arrogant, devastating truth bombs. I want Ivy's chilling, unrepentant madness. I want Electra's shattering grief and eventual fiery vengeance. I feel like we are being served an absolute feast of drama, and I am savoring every single bite. I know it is easy to get caught up in the complaints online to nitpick the pacing or the repetitive arguments, but I genuinely think that if you step back and look at the emotional tapestry being woven right now, it is breathtaking. The way the writers have positioned these young characters to inherit the exact same flaws, feuds, and fierce loyalties as their parents is Shakespearean. I feel so incredibly invested in what happens next. Will RJ completely shatter now that his Forrester identity has been publicly mocked? Will Electra ever be able to look at her family the same way again? Will Dylan survive the unfinished business that is coming for her? I don't know the answers. But I know that I will be glued to my screen feeling every single high and low right alongside them. This is what daytime drama is meant to be, and I am loving every single second of it.